is the Happy Scientist Podcast. Each episode is designed to make you more focused, more productive, and more satisfied in the lab. You can find us online at bitesizebio.com/happyscientist. Your hosts are Kenneth Vogt, founder of the executive coaching firm Vera Claritas, and Dr. Nick Oswald, PhD, bioscientist, and founder of Bitesize Bio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Happy Scientist Podcast. This is the place to be if you want to become a happier, healthier and more productive scientist. I'm Nick Oswald, the founder of bitesizebio.com, and today we are drawing on the wisdom of Mr. Kenneth Vogt, the Bitesize Bio team coach and founder of the executive mentoring company Vera Claritas. Today, and in all other Happy Scientist podcast episodes, you get to benefit from his Yoda-like words of wisdom to help you increase your performance, enjoyment, and success in the lab. Today, we'll be discussing something that you've maybe never managed to spot before. We're talking about how to see your blind spots. So Ken, how do you do that? How can you see something that you can't see?
Well, it begins with, first thing we have to acknowledge, everybody's got blind spots. We all agree with that, right? Everybody else especially, they've got blind spots.
I know you do.
Yeah, and I know you do. But, it's the thing we have to get clear about is, I myself have blind spots. It's just how it is. And this is where it gets more interesting. It's not that hard to admit that you have blind spots until it gets specific. Then it's a matter of but not that one. It's like, well, are you always kind? Well, sure. Well, how about, are you always kind to your spouse? Well, I don't want to talk about that. Well, how about, are you always kind to your kids? So, well, I don't know about that. Are you always kind to your grad students? And you can go down the list and people say, well, I'm not always kind, but whenever you want to make it specific, are you kind with strangers? Are you kind with the homeless person on the street? They don't want to look at it, but this is part of what you have to do. The first thing we have to do is admit explicitly that a particular blind spot exists. Until we face a specific blind spot, we're never going to be able to see it. So after that, we can head through some stages of how to deal with it. But it all begins with that acknowledge a blind spot. Now, it might be something that has to do with, that's very specific. Like, I just don't understand something. I see there's a prevalent view right now. I just don't get it. I don't see what all the excitement's about. I don't know why people care. I don't know why I should care. Or why it would matter in my work. So it's up to you to decide, well, what things really matter. After that, you're going to find there's a standard way that we all approach this kind of thing. When you have a blind spot, the first thing after you realize it is you realize how terribly uncomfortable you are. Like, here you are, you've been going along, and all of a sudden you realize, holy cow, I've never understood this. I've never even noticed that mattered. Whatever it may be. Now, this could be something. It could be something purely emotional, but it could be something very factually based. That could be very much that is inhibiting your progress as a scientist and as a researcher. Something that you just haven't noticed to look at. And now you're finally going, all this time, this keeps happening. I keep having this problem, What if I looked over here? And, it might be something that you feel is below you to look at. Like, maybe I need to work on the environment being more sterile. Now that sounds, I know that's a very basic thing. But what if you decide to look at that? And that's when you discover certain things that you might not have realized. That's when you're all like, holy cow, how is this? There's this contaminant here. And how did it get there? Now you got something to look at. Now, at the beginning, when you first see a blind spot and it's uncomfortable or maybe embarrassing or or it can be intellectually frightening. Like, I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. Our natural reaction is to resist. Resistance is something that I'm sure you encounter all the time in others and in yourself. And it gives some evidence of dealing with blind spots. So the first thing you want to look at is, what don't I want to see? And I put it that way, because the important part is about the wanting. It isn't that you can't see it. It's that you don't want to see it. You don't want to see a problem. It's going to be so much harder if this is true. Oh, but if it is true, it's true. Well, and you got to deal with it. So
Okay.
first.
So
Yeah.
so here's a. I'm just trying to think of a way to contextualize this in science. A simple one. So imagine you're in the lab, you're doing your experiments, and you're doing an experiment that involves a lot of pipetting, and the results just don't make sense. So you're checking the reagents, you're looking for all of the solutions that are someone else's fault, something wrong with the reagent, or something that is easy to fix, like, you changed the timer, the timer was on too long or something like that. And it finally boils down to the fact that the way that you're pipetting is causing the problem. And that's fundamental, because it means that you will have to go away and check all your pipettes. You're going to have to just check your pipetting technique. It might mean that previous experiments have been messed up by the same issue. That's going to be painful, right? So the quicker you can allow yourself to stop resisting that possibility and deal with it, then the quicker you're going to get back on track.
Sure. So, as an aside, if this pipetting problem sounds like a issue you have encountered, you ought to head over to Bitesize Bio. There's a bunch of articles about that over there.
There certainly are.
So now let's look at this a little different. Or you know what you don't want to see, but why don't you want to see it? And I think you just gave us a hint of why you might not want to see certain things. It's like, oh man, now I have to get up to speed, or I'm going to have to go through a whole lot of work, or I'm going to have to ask for a whole lot of work to be done to address this. So it doesn't go away just because you don't want to see it. It doesn't go away because you've got a reason to not want to see it. These are excuses behind resistance, and I want to be really blunt here. I'm saying excuses. They're not reasons for resistance. They are excuses for resistance. They're not serving you. They're getting in your way, and they're keeping you from addressing your blind spots. So another question you might ask yourself then is, what may I have to admit? Now that I've seen something here, is there something I have to admit? And the admission might be, I have not got myself fully qualified for this technique, and I need to work on it.
So here's one: is you go, okay, so I kind of skipped over pipetting because I so many people. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to talk for anyone else. I'm going to. I kind of skipped over the basics of pipetting because it's easy. That's the fundamentals. I'm clever. Why should I have to sit and figure out and test myself on something so menial? I just go straight into the meat of the experiment. I never take the time to clean my pipettes and calibrate them and so on. And I thought I could get away with it.
Even I know that sounds bad, but that's the thing about it. You may find when you're going to have to admit that you're doing some things that even look bad to somebody who's not a scientist. So, but here's the thing. If it looks bad, because it is bad, well, you need to know. You need to take notice of it, and you need to admit it. And I'm not saying you gotta get on a soapbox and tell everybody how bad you suck at this. It's a matter of admitting to yourself. It's not like you have to be browbeat about this. It's just when you recognize that there's something that you need to work on, something you're failing at, something you're inadequate at, by all means admit it to yourself. Now another question you may need to ask yourself is, what may I have to give up in the light of this blind spot. That is, you may have some preciously held views, and what if now there's evidence that you need to change your view, and that can be even harder to do than to admitting to a lack, because you've got an investment in your present view.
So say you think that, I'm above all that stuff, calibration.
Right.
I don't need to spend the time on that. I can be. I'm talking about myself here. It's about, I can just do this stuff and I don't need to pay attention to the details. That's probably why I'm not in the lab anymore, to be honest. But
well, it does take a certain type of personality.
Yeah, it really does.
And we've talked in the past about there's plenty of possibilities for making a living as a scientist that don't involve the lab. So,
yeah. But I mean,
Nick's made it somehow.
It's funny though that when that example though, from something so small, seemingly so small, it can cause big problems if you don't let yourself see it. But when you do let yourself see it, it can be fundamentally life changing. Even that is
right.
Do I want to? Am I the sort of person who can do this? Can commit to this level of detail all the time? Maybe I'm in the wrong career. That's taking it to the extreme. But
it's taking it to the negative extreme. But it might be like, what? I want to be this. I want to rise to this level. I want to be one of the excellent people that can do this. Because I know a lot of people just plain can't. And maybe I'm going to find it hard to get there, but I'm capable of getting there. And so it drives you that way.
Yeah, and so you've just uncovered one of the obstacles that you were unconsciously blocking yourself from being excellent. Yeah.
Right. Well, that leads to another question. What am I gaining by resisting? When, why do I not want to give up this belief? Why do I not want to admit there's a problem? Why didn't I want to see? All that stuff is because there's something you've gotten out of resisting. It's actually been beneficial to you. So don't be too hard on yourself that you've been resistant of something, because there is some benefit. Maybe the benefit is just I don't have to work that hard, or I don't have to think that hard.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but other times it's like, well, I thought I had this all sorted out, and that was a very comforting position, and well, that's turning out to not be so. So now I resist. So once you see all that and you start to realize, well, there's really not any value in me resisting any further. When all of the possibilities for resistance being good for you go away, well, now you are in a position to switch over to that next most beautiful thing, and that is acceptance. At this point, you've got a blind spot, and you're not going to fight it in. You've decided, you've been through the process. I'm not fighting this thing. I still don't know anything. I just know I have a problem. I don't know what to do about it. But you know what? I'm okay with that. Because having acknowledged that I've got this issue to deal with, well, now I can go find a solution. I don't have to know what to do yet. What I have learned, though, is now I know I don't know something. And that's extremely useful. And I'll refer you back to episode 31 of the podcast where we talked about what you don't know. This is part of the way of getting out of that mode. When you see your blind spots, you're starting to uncover what you don't know. And you've taken to it a very useful place of I know what I don't know. So the other thing about this is now that you've realized there's something you don't know, you can get all fixated about the monumental amount of stuff that you don't know. And it can be, you can get down on yourself, but you're not the sum of your voids. That's not who you are. So don't worry about the things you don't know. There's always going to be stuff you don't know. And there's going to be important things you don't know. And the fact is that there being important things you don't know is what has driven science from the beginning. And it's that draw to find those things that you don't know, to fill those voids. And that's what acceptance will do for you. And obviously, acceptance is way better than resistance. Resistance is giving you limited value.
It's one of those, a different angle on that sort of idea of you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable if you want to expand. Yeah, because and one way to look at that is what you're looking for is your blind spots and how to fix them.
Well, now you got another article you brought up to mind that I'll have to put in the show notes.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's about it's an article I believe was entitled "There's No Such Thing as a Comfort Zone." This is a manufactured notion of what we think we're comfortable with, because other people are comfortable with things we're not comfortable with. Well, obviously it's possible, so we can go there. So, having gotten to the point of acceptance, you will notice that you still have a blind spot. All you've done is revealed it, and you've gotten clear about it, and you know it's there, but you don't know what to do about it. Well, you got to keep going. And for that, you got to move to a place that I'm gonna label post-acceptance. At post-acceptance, you choose discovery. I'm out there looking for the solution to this. Now, 'cause in some cases, it's just blocking and tackling, as it were. There's nothing about it that's going to be that hard. Learning how to pipette properly, that's something I can get schooled on. I can get information about that, and I can put it into practice, and I can do it. There are other blind spots. When you open them up, you're going to realize there isn't there's nowhere to look. No one can tell me the answer to this. I'm going to have to go find it. And when you commit to that, to me, that's the highest calling of science. That's been something science has done better than any other endeavor in human existence, in my mind. So, discovery is the place to be. Now, like we talked about earlier with resistance, or where you were getting some gains from resisting, now is the time to really dig into, all right, well, how do I replace those gains from my former resistance? Because those gains obviously mattered to you. So you're going to need to find a way to replace those. And sometimes in filling your blind spots, that's a good place to start. Because it might be, wow, I got to do this whole discovery thing before I can really solve this blind spot. But before I do that, let me solidify my foundation and make sure that I'm getting all of the things I used to get out of resisting already, and get that laid out there. And then you're gonna be more comfortable in your search for discovery. Now, I realize that's not always possible. When folks launched into finding new vaccine, and they had a very short time frame in front of them, they didn't really get a chance to get comfortable. That wasn't going to work there. And that's true in a number of ways in life. There's some times when getting comfortable is not a priority. And so, you have to assess for yourself when that matters. But when you have the opportunity to do so, do it. It's going to make everything easier, and it's going to also clear the decks, as it were, so you can focus all your attention on discovery going forward. I was thinking about somebody that I used to know, or I used to work with, let's put it that way. And, I had hired him as a software engineer, and he was good as a software engineer, but it wasn't his degree wasn't in software engineering, and his resume wasn't in software engineering. His resume was quite interesting. He had been a tank commander for the U.S. Army. Now, it's in some ways it's a small job. He was he had the rank of captain. That's not insignificant. And commanding a tank is not insignificant, but it's a small crew. He had like 3 people in the tank with him. Well, it's not like having a giant battalion behind you. But then again, you've got a tank. So. What he did was he was able to take his experience and say, well, I can apply this in another area. And this is a time of the dot-com boom when we were really willing to bring people in without a software degree because they were already all soaked up. And some of the best engineers I ever had were people that had degrees in all kinds of other fields, in history and in biology and in chemistry, that turned out to be better software engineers than the people that I had that were software engineers, by training. So, it came out of a willingness to see, okay, there's stuff I don't know, because they knew they didn't know stuff because they weren't trained there. It's like their eyes were open to a different way of seeing things. Whereas the people that had gone through the software engineering education had gotten deeply pathed. And not to say that was a bad thing, because a lot of that's, we don't want to be reinventing the wheel. But it was great to have some people out there that had a little broader view and they could clearly see some blind spots that some of their better educated comrades could not see because they were just too deep in it. And not that they couldn't forever see it, but it wasn't automatic.
That's a different viewpoint, isn't it? It's like people are coming to biology from mathematics or chemistry or something like that. They maybe don't have they don't immediately have the specific domain knowledge, but they come with such a different viewpoint that it can be really beneficial.
For sure. So, and perhaps you, dear listener, that's you. So, you know what? If you got that, make it work, So that's the idea. Move from resistance to acceptance to post-acceptance. Go back and look at what you don't know, and see what you can do.
That's the way to do it. Thanks, Ken. That's a good summary of a very important point, actually. Quite a good way it was quite clarifying for me. So hopefully everyone else enjoyed it. Ken mentioned a couple of articles there that will be in the show notes for this episode. You can find the show notes by going to bitesizebio.com/The Happy Scientist and looking for this, which is episode 47. And on that page, you will find the show notes. And at that same place, you will find you can find all of the previous episodes that we've done. There's plenty to look through if you haven't done so already. Some really interesting stuff there. And that just leaves me to remind you about the Facebook page as well. If you want to join us there, The Happy Scientist Club, facebook.com/The Happy Scientist Club, and you can join it up with us, chat with us, whatever you want to do there. So again, Ken, thank you very much for another illuminating little nugget here, and we will see you all again next time.
Bye now.
The Happy Scientist is brought to you by Bitesize Bio, your mentor in the lab. Bitesize Bio features thousands of articles and webinars contributed by hundreds of PhD scientists and scientific companies who freely offer their hard-won wisdom and solutions to the Bitesize Bio community.